All inaudible this morning because it's one of those weeks where as I was reading through the lectionary text and I had the scripture that was in the bulletin all set to go, and then you turn on the news and you see what's going on in our world, and you see the violence, and you see the protests, and you see the anxiety. There was a shooting here in Ohio again, all this negative things. And I kept thinking, how do I respond to this? Well, last night, a friend of ours had his birthday, and we all went out to dinner, and then we went to the Funny Bone, the comedian club. And then the sermon came to me. Because I was thinking, what can I share? What can I do? And then I laughed all night, and you ever just laugh so much the back of your head hurts? And if there's the doctors in here, I want to know what is in the back of my head that hurts every time I laugh so hard. But I kept thinking about everybody in this room that was listening to this comedian, and we're laughing and we're crying because we're laughing so hard. And everybody in there probably thought differently and probably would not get along on some issues. But at that moment, there was a healing power because laughter and humor just can do that. It can bring healing into a lot of situations, and sometimes that's all we have when this world knocks us down, when we want to not get out of bed, when we're afraid to turn on the news, when we are anxious because of the way our country is going, or whatever that may be, and we are anxious and stressed out. Laughter really does bring some great things. And it reminded me of my favorite picture of Jesus, and if you'll put that up there. How many people have seen the Laughing Jesus picture before? It's just an old picture, okay? And it just reminds me that humor has a place and that it can be beneficial and a blessing for a lot of things. I mean, think about it. We live a life and it's funny. Whether we think it's funny at the moment, we always have those times where we get into situations and in the moment you're like, you better not laugh. But then it provides a lifetime of laughter after that because of the memory. I remember growing up, and had all of these things that now we laugh about. I remember it was in the middle of winter one time, and all of a sudden our furnace was acting up. So my dad, who could do little things around the house, but nothing really major, decided, I'm going downstairs to fix the furnace. And so we're saying, okay, Dad's going to fix the furnace, and the heat will come back on. About 10 minutes later, we heard like a small little explosion, and then my dad hit the wall, and some choice words came out of his mouth. And of course, my brother and I were just laughing, like, what happened? And my dad comes upstairs. And this is where it really just got the best, because he had soot all over his face and no eyebrows. Like literally, the eyebrows got singed off. And then it got better because we had to stay at a hotel that night because we had no heat, and it was like 0 degrees near Buffalo, New York, and all of that. And that was the best because my dad had to check into the hotel with no eyebrows. And he was not happy about it. And if I remember correctly, I think he tried to negotiate with my mom to go and check in, but my dad has done so many bad things to my mom. My mom's like, nope, you're doing it. And we watched that happen. Just one of those memories. Or I remember in high school, we were in the weight room. And if we had a study hall, they allowed us to go lift weights or whatnot, those of us that were on sports teams. And I remember my buddies and I were there, and some very attractive girls came into the weight room. And just like anything we do, we have to overshoot what we actually can do. So I said, just put more weight on the bench. I'm going to bench it, and these girls are going to come over here, and I'm going to have 3 dates to the prom, because that's how this is going to happen. So we put the weights on, and and all of a sudden the bar just comes to my chest. And at this point, I'm still stubborn, and I say, I'm just going to lift it. But then I don't breathe, I don't do anything, and I'm straining, and then the blood vessel burst, and my nose just started bleeding. And those girls never talked to me. But I provided them with a good memory. Or since we're on bad stories, this is another one, and I want you to laugh here. Maybe I've shared this story before, but Amanda and I were in a shoe store one time, and those of you that know me know that I'm not very observant. You know, so like if my daughter got kidnapped, I would be the one that had no idea what she was wearing or anything, okay? But I was looking at shoes, and Amanda went to look for some shoes. And I saw somebody who I thought looked like Amanda, and she's bent over, and she's looking at shoes. So I get very close to her, and then I tap her. I'm not making this up. And then that girl looks at me, and I just went to where she was. I said, "We have to go now." And we literally just walked out of the shoe store. Like I was about to be arrested for assault. Like, how can you not laugh? And it doesn't matter what kind of mood you're in. When you think of these stories, you laugh, and it makes you feel good. Sure, it was an embarrassing moment, but now it has some healing properties, you know? It's powerful. You know, doctors will tell you that laughter and humor, they release chemicals, you know, so they really does benefit you. And how about laughter actually, you know, has power to stop arguments too? Have you ever been in an argument and then something funny happens and then you're not arguing anymore, you're just kind of laughing? You know, one of the best things, and I don't recommend this because this could have went horribly wrong for me. But Amanda and I got into a real doozy of a fight. I don't even remember what it was about. Years and years ago. And we're yelling back and forth. And, you know, me being Italian, I just yell even if I'm not mad. But we're yelling, and Amanda's yelling, and I'm getting mad. So finally, I just look at her, and I just say, what time do you need to be back in hell? And yeah. It happened. But she started laughing. And she's like, "You know what? That was good." And we stopped fighting. Now, like I said, that could have went bad for me, and I might not be here. But laughter healed. Stressed, upset, anxious, you know, you go out and you have a good time. Like last night, you know, if we were anxious or stressed and I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to share anything this morning, but we went and we had a good time and healing was brought. So we laugh, and that is what we are called to do. So I kept thinking of Jesus' story, his first miracle of going to the wedding at Cana. And of course, his first miracle was turning the water into the wine. And in biblical times, weddings were a big deal. And I've read a couple different commentaries that said some weddings could even last for days. That as long as there was wine there, the wedding continued. So of course, when they came to Jesus or Mary and said, "You know, there's no wine, the party's going to stop," and Jesus says, "Okay," and he turned the water into wine, and that party continued. And there was dancing, and there was drinking, and there was singing, and they were having a good time. And I kept thinking, well, you know, why would Jesus do this? You know, why, for the first miracle that Jesus did, why would it be turning water into wine? Why would it be going to a party? Why would it be going to a wedding? And there's a lot of different theories about that and the timing, and this is just how it was meant to be, and the customs and all of that. But I thought, what if Jesus just understood that perhaps continuing that party, continuing that laughter and that humor is what was needed? That it was a blessing to say, we are here on this journey together, and we can have a good time, and we can laugh, and healing can happen even if we are anxious about what is going on around us in our world, in our lives, and things seem to collapse. We can still smile because we know that Christ, that God is a part of what we do. And I'm always amazed looking at old church photos. I would not have made a good brother in the 1940s or whatever that was. Or anybody. I mean, if you look at those photos, there's no joy. They're just, I'm not laughing. You know, this is serious, and I'm pious, and all of this. And we have to be, you know, orderly and all that. And I'm just thinking, that doesn't, you know, translate to that photo up there. It doesn't translate into what happens into our lives when we laugh. And what is contagious about that? If we came into a church and everybody is just upset and everybody just doesn't think we can have fun or laugh, or people don't think we can take ourselves, with the humor in our life. lives. It's not very attractive. And part of what we are doing in this Christian life is trying to attract people to God and to what we believe is beneficial in the faith that we lead. So we are to smile and have a good time and to share all of that. I mean, I deal with this sometimes too. I have a very intense face sometimes. I could just be sitting there and I just look very upset. I can't help it. This is my face. Okay, I was born like this. But people have said, well, we didn't really come to you, John, because you didn't really look approachable. You looked intense, you looked upset, and it really wasn't, contagious in a way. So, sometimes I have to pay attention to that, but there's truth in that. You don't really go to people who are miserable and unhappy because it does not benefit you. And most times when somebody is bitter and unhappy, you become bitter and unhappy because it's contagious the other way around. But if you see somebody smiling and relaxed and having a good time, you're like, I want to have a piece of that. And it becomes something that we can draw people in with and say, this is life, and it is messy, and there are bad things, and there are anxious times. But we can laugh and smile because we know we walk with God. And not only do we walk with God, we walk with each other. And all of us have these silly moments in our life that cause us to laugh. Or we can take a break out of the chaos of our day and go be and listen to comedians or whatever it is. And for that brief moment, have a respite from the chaos in our lives. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we don't have to address issues. And I'm not saying that life is always funny. There are serious things that are happening in our world right now. And whatever side of the spectrum you're on, there are anxieties and worries on both sides. And we're not sure what to do or how to respond. But if I can't laugh and I can't smile, all of that other worry is just going to weigh me down and kill me in a lot of different ways. We come to church. One of the functions of church is that you come to let go of your worries, to breathe a little bit. You don't come to church to add to your worries and to carry out more worries. We come to smile and be comforted. I'm reminded of John 16:33 as we close, because it's my favorite verse in the entire Bible, and I know I say this a lot, but it's a foundational verse, because Christ, his disciples, in this farewell discourse, his disciples are anxious because Jesus says, guess what? I'm leaving and I'm not going to be with you anymore. And they don't know what they're going to do because they've spent years with Christ building this ministry, and they're watching, what's about to play out, and they don't know what to do. What are we going to do without you? You're the one that shows us the way. How are we going to continue this story without you if you go up and just stressed out? And then Jesus talks to them. And he tries to assure them and says, listen, even though I'm leaving, I'm sending you somebody else. The Spirit is coming. But even that still had some anxiety. So that verse in John 16:33, and I'll paraphrase it, okay? But it is great. And he says, listen, I understand that in this world you are going to have troubles. I understand in this world some days the phone is going to ring and your life may shatter. I understand that you're going to be in countries where the politics, pull at people. I understand that sometimes families fall apart. I understand that sometimes jobs fall apart. Life is tough. I understand that some days it just doesn't make sense. But you can have peace because I have overcome the world. And I love that. And sometimes I've heard people say, and you can have peace and you can have joy. You can have a smile on your face because even though you don't want to smile, I am God. Life is precious, people. And the more we get through it, the more I understand that smiling and laughing with each other is the best medicine we can have sometimes. And I'm not trying to bury my head in the sand and say I don't want to deal with anything that is going on, and I'm still trying to formulate how I can address some things. But sometimes before we could even do that, we need to have a little bit of a break and we need to be blessed, and we need to understand, you know what? I don't need to take myself so seriously. You know, I've been a minister for 20 years, and it never fails to amaze me that the longer you're a minister, the more people let you know how they feel about you, good or bad. And I remember somebody came up to me, and they didn't appreciate my sense of humor. And I understand, I have a different sense of humor. If you come to the movies with me, I will be the one laughing when nobody else is laughing, okay? But they said, you know, I don't appreciate your self-deprecating humor. You're always making people laugh at you, and you're always sharing these horrible stories about your life, and you're making fun of them, and they weren't fun. And I'm like, you're right, they weren't fun. But now I can laugh at them. And the reason that I do laugh at them and I share them is because people can identify with them. And because if I didn't laugh at them, I would never have healed. That's why I don't take myself so seriously. I mean, I try sometimes. But we are a faulty people. And oftentimes I think we are God's Comedy Central channel. Meaning God has to be up there going, I can't believe this. I mean, did you just see what John did? Or whatever it may be. People, we can laugh and we can have a good time because it builds us up and it gives us strength to do the stuff that is not that fun. So I don't really know how to end this morning, so I'll share a joke. Okay? Listen. See? I'm going to make her tell the joke. This was emailed me today. And it said there were these two ministers that were, I don't know where took place, but they put a sign out because, you know, there was a problem down the road, and they put a sign out that said, the end is near, turn around now before it's too late. And of course, people would drive by it, and they would go right through it. And one guy rolled down the window and goes, oh, just be quiet, you religious nuts, because they think they're talking about the end times. And of course, when the car went by, they'd hear a screech of the brakes, and all of a sudden a big splash. And this happened 2 or 3 more times. And all of a sudden, you know, the preachers said, well, maybe we should have just put the bridges out. You know. Not as funny as my dad without eyebrows. Funny nonetheless. So, we have a good time. We come here because it fills us, and we can laugh, and we can say, yeah, I know what's waiting for me out there. I know it's there. But at this moment, I can be with each other, and I can be with God, and we can smile, and we can have peace, because we know that Christ has overcome the world. And all of God's people said, Amen. So as we leave this place, may we smile, may we laugh, and may we let the light of Christ shine in our life so that others may be attracted to that. And one final time this morning, all of God's people said, Amen.